Welcome back to EtherLink AI Insights. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into a topic that's reshaping how enterprises in Europe's tech hubs are building AI systems. We're talking about agentic AI and autonomous agents, specifically what's happening in Eindhoven in 2026. Sam, this feels like a fundamental shift from what we've been talking about AI doing for the past few years.
Absolutely, Alex. The chatbot era is officially over. We're moving from systems that wait for questions to systems that actually take action autonomously. And what's fascinating is that 78% of Fortune 500 companies are now prioritizing multi-agent orchestration. That's not a niche trend. That's mainstream enterprise strategy.
So when you say agentic AI, what are we really talking about here? I want to make sure our listeners understand the difference from what they might already know about AI.
Great question. Traditional chatbots are reactive. You ask a question, they give you an answer. Done. An agentic system is proactive. It continuously monitors environments, identifies problems on its own, executes multi-step workflows, and adapts based on what happens. In Eindhoven's manufacturing sector, we're seeing agents that automatically monitor supply chains, predict equipment failures, and trigger corrective actions without anyone asking them to.
That's a pretty significant leap in autonomy. Can you give us a concrete example of what that looks like in practice?
Think about warehouse inventory management. A reactive system flags when inventory is off. An agentic system reconciles the inventory automatically, adjusts procurement orders, and notifies stakeholders, all on its own. Gartner reported that 62% of enterprises implementing these workflows see 40 to 50% efficiency gains. For export-heavy industries like Eindhoven's, that's competitive advantage you can measure immediately.
That's compelling, but I imagine scaling this up is where it gets really complex. You can't just have one agent doing everything, right?
Exactly. That's where multi-agent orchestration comes in. Real enterprise deployments involve dozens of specialized agents, one handling customer inquiries, another managing inventory, a third optimizing logistics. They all need to communicate, resolve conflicts, and coordinate without stepping on each other's toes. This is where infrastructure becomes critical.
What kind of infrastructure are we talking about? Is this something enterprises can build themselves? Or is it fundamentally complex?
It's fundamentally complex, which is why standards like MCP, the Model Context Protocol, have become essential. You need agent mesh architecture, which means agents operate independently but communicate through standardized interfaces. You also need unified monitoring frameworks. It's not just technology, it's orchestration discipline.
Let's talk about something I think our listeners will relate to. The gap between what sounds good in theory and what actually works in production. Because I imagine there's a big difference between a sophisticated standalone agent and an agent that actually drives business value.
You've identified the crux of 2026 AI deployment. Standalone agents, no matter how sophisticated, struggle without proper context engineering and domain-specific knowledge. What actually wins in production is integrated workflows. Structured sequences of agent actions, decision points, and feedback loops that turn raw AI capability into revenue.
So it's not about having the smartest agent, it's about having the smartest workflow design?
Precisely. I'd say agentic AI success hinges on three things: workflow design, context precision, and integration depth. A general-purpose agent can't optimize semiconductor fabrication or pharmaceutical supply chains without deep domain knowledge. Eindhoven's precision manufacturers learned this the hard way. They realized isolated agents are expensive experiments, but integrated workflows are actual revenue drivers.
That's a really important distinction. Now, we should probably mention that all of this is happening in an increasingly regulated environment. The EU AI Act is real, and it affects how these systems get deployed. How does that change the game?
It changes everything operationally. Compliance isn't a checkbox. It's baked into the architecture from day one. Enterprises need explainability, auditability, and clear decision trails for every autonomous action their agents take. That's actually where AI-led architecture principles become essential. You're designing for governance from the start, not retrofitting it later.
Does that slow things down, or does it just change how you build?
It changes how you build. Yes, it requires more upfront design work, but enterprises that do this right actually move faster in production because they avoid the compliance nightmares later. Eindhoven-based firms that understand this have a structural advantage over regions that treat compliance as an afterthought.
Let's zoom out for a second. If I'm leading a tech organization in Eindhoven or elsewhere in Europe right now, and I'm hearing all this, what should I actually be doing in 2026?
3 things. First, audit your current AI deployments. Understand where you're still in the reactive chatbot phase and where you could move to autonomous workflows. Second, invest in workflow design and context engineering, not just agent sophistication. Third, build compliance into your architecture now before you scale. Don't wait.
And if they're just starting their agentic AI journey, where's the entry point?
Start small with a high-impact domain, something like supply chain optimization or equipment maintenance prediction, where autonomous action directly reduces costs. Build one integrated workflow end-to-end, get it right, get it compliant, then iterate and expand. Quality beats speed here.
That's practical advice. Before we wrap, let me ask, what's the one thing that most organizations get wrong when they're starting with agentic AI?
They focus on agent intelligence instead of workflow architecture. They hire for AI talent when they should also be investing heavily in systems architects and integration specialists. The agent itself is often the smallest part of the problem.
That's a great insight to leave our listeners with. Sam, thanks for breaking this down. If anyone wants to dig deeper into agentic AI architecture, orchestration patterns, and EU AI Act compliance specifically for Eindhoven enterprises, the full article is on etherlink.ai. That's where we've got all the detailed technical insights, case studies, and implementation frameworks. Thanks for joining us on EtherLink AI Insights.
Thanks for having me, Alex. This is where AI is heading. Let's make sure organizations build it responsibly and strategically.